slasher season. I genuinely don't know what it is about slashers, but I think most horror fans agree that summer is the season of the slasher. Maybe because summer is associated with fun, and I think slashers in general are a pretty fun genre, but I have no idea. Let me know, why do you think summer and slashers are a match made in heaven? This month, the awesome Kelsey from the channel Slime and Slashers is hosting a Patreon-only readathon, and it is of course slasher themed. You don't have to read all slasher books, but I'll try as much as possible to stay on theme, just for fun. And I'll explain how the readathon works in a bit, because it's actually super cute. This is Michelle's Melancholia, where we read books to fear and shed tear. So let's get slashing. Okay, so the first thing we're going to do is come up with a TBR, and here's where I have to explain to you how this whole thing works. So the name of the readathon is Slasher Corn Readathon, and the point is to build your own little slasher corn. So that's super cute. There is two types. There is the actual corn on the cob, slasher corn, and there is a candy corn, slasher corn. So you get to choose which one you want. And then there are different reading prompts that give you different choices of accessories you can add to your little character to turn them into the slasher of your dreams. So that's adorable. However, because the readathon only lasts for 11 days, and actually it is Sunday 4th today, so I'm already starting a bit late, I need to have a strategy so I can be as efficient as possible. I already have my vision of the kind of slasher corn that I want to create, so I'm going to build my TBR with that goal in mind. So even though the candy corn is super adorable, I think the little corn on the cob really encapsulates summer for me, so I'm gonna go with that. And my idea is to build a silly, summery, witchy slasher corn. So the first step will be giving my slasher a pair of glasses, and I'm gonna go with heart-shaped sunglasses, obviously, because that is silly and summery. And the prompt that will give you glasses is reading a book with an odd number of pages, and for that I have chosen Dead Eyes by Evie Knight, which is part of the Rewind or Die series. And according to Amazon, this one is 73 pages, which is also perfect because I really need some short books in there. And I think this is a slasher. The description says this is about a man or a teenage boy, I'm not sure, that in the 60s murdered a bunch of teenagers in his family home, and then he went to jail, then actually escaped from the asylum, and I think no one knows where he was or is. So basically it says, will Lisa uncover the truth, or will she and her friends die trying? The next accessory I want to give my slasher corn is of course a witch hat to make her witchy, and the prompt for that is read a book set at summer camp or at a carnival. And for that I chose Halloweenland, a coming-of-age novella by Kevin J. Kennedy. You know I'm not the biggest fan of coming-of-age, but this sounds right up my alley. It is about a pair of friends that love Halloween, and then a traveling carnival comes, Halloweenland comes into town. So it's definitely giving something wicked this way comes vibes, but I love that the carnival is Halloween themed, so I'm excited to see where that goes. Then I want to give my witchy slasher a knife, because I think that's just a classic slasher weapon, and I imagine she would be in her kitchen chopping up veggies and then step out the door and go slash some people. And to give her a knife, I have to read a book published before 2020, and I went with one that I've been wanting to read for ages, and that is Exquisite Corpse by Poppy Z. Brite. And as most of you will know, this is about serial killers coming together and engaging in a dangerous relationship. I'm honestly a bit nervous about this one, but I think I'm going to really like it. Because it is summer, I want to give my slasher a water gun. She can use it to cool herself down if she's been running around too much, or she can even rinse off some blood. So I thought it would be pretty handy. And the prompt for that is read a book with a one-word title or a title with more than 3 words. So for this one, I chose another book club book, and that is Curse of the Reaper by Brian McCauley. This will be my only audiobook, and this is for the Dark Hearts Book Club hosted by Amy from the channel Amy Noel Reads. And this is about a man who played a slasher in a movie, and somehow the fictional slasher is haunting him. So that sounds pretty amazing. Then, to make my slasher extra witchy, I want to give her a little mole, and the prompt for that is read a book written by a woman. And for that, I've chosen One Hell of a Night by Stephanie Sparks, also because this is the pick for a book club called Eerie Indies, which is run by Kelly from the channel Kelly Hooked on Books. I honestly have no idea what this is about, and I don't want to read the description because for book club books, I like just going in completely blind. So let's see how that works out. I'm kind of worried that it's going to be like romancy or sexy. I don't know why the cover just gives me that impression, but I could be totally wrong. So those are my plans for the week. I'm a little bit tight on time, I'm gonna be honest, so wish me luck, and hopefully we'll have a bloody good time. Hello, I've been reading for about 5 days now, and I've managed to finish 2 books that I will be talking about right now. The first one was Curse of the Reaper by Brian McCauley. I hope I got that right, and that is also the pick for Amy's Dark Hearts Book Club for the month of June, and that's Amy from the channel Amy Noel Reads. I will link it in the description. And this one was really fun. I wouldn't say that the book itself is a slasher, but it is about a slasher. So basically it is about this guy. He's an actor, and throughout many years he played the villain in a slasher series. So it is the Reaper series, and he of course played the Reaper. And what's happening in the book is that now it's been a few years since the last of those movies was made, but a remake has just been announced, and this triggers something in this man, and it seems like he's been haunted by the spirit, let's say, of this fictional villain that was the Reaper. I think what I liked most about this book is the fictional movie series. They describe the different movies and how the original one has a pretty interesting backstory, but as many franchises, the more the series progresses, the more the movies seem like a cash grab, and they start doing really silly things like having the Reaper's baby and the Reaper in space and all of those crazy things that horror movie franchises sometimes do. In terms of the story itself, I think it was good, and as I said, it was really fun, but I ended up giving it a 3.5 stars. I wasn't crazy about it, and the reason is that as a reader, I really care a lot about characters, and for me the characters in this one were a bit flat, or for some reason I just couldn't connect with them, and I didn't really care a lot about what happened to them. They were definitely interesting. There is the main character, that's the actor, as I said, and the other main character is another actor, a young actor that has been chosen to play the new Reaper. And as I said, they're both interesting, they both have quite compelling backstories, but for some reason I just couldn't connect. So that's my only criticism. I really like how the story developed. I just wish I had become more attached to the characters, because that for me is very important, but it's definitely a super fun read, and I think especially for people who are fan of slasher movies and like following slasher franchises, there are so many little gems in this book that are just so funny. And then the next book I read was Dead Eyes by Evie Knight, and this is one of the Rewind or Die series. I think this is another one of those maybe underappreciated gems in this book series. I personally liked it a lot. It is set in the 80s, and it is about a teenage girl. She lives in this town where there is a house that is believed to be haunted, and the story of the house is really intriguing. So it used to be also a funeral parlor, so the family that lived there also took care of the funeral business. And what happened is that they had a teenage son, and during a school party, a bunch of the students that attended the party were found murdered in the funeral parlor part of the house, and the teenage son was found guilty of these murders. However, a few years later, he disappeared from the psychiatric facility he was in, and it is unknown whether he is alive or dead. And now in the current timeline, a new family has moved into the house, and the teenage girl that I mentioned at the beginning becomes friends with the girl there. I feel like I explained this very badly. Actually, the story is kind of complicated. At a few points, I was a little bit confused because there is a lot of backstory, and sometimes it's a little bit over the top, but for some reason I really enjoyed it. I think the fact that this house was also a funeral parlor makes it really creepy, because there is a lot of talk about the techniques that are used to make dead bodies look presentable for funerals. And of course, some of these techniques also are relevant when it comes to the killings that take place. This one, I would say, is one of the goriest Rewind or Die books I have read. There were a few scenes that were super gross, but as I said, I really enjoyed it. And I think for a really quick read, a lot of horror readers would actually enjoy this. It goes super fast, it's very action-packed, and it really packed a punch. The only thing that I found a bit weird was the use of a word that is a slur. I know that this specific word is not so bad in the United States, whereas it's pretty bad in the UK. But I don't know, it kind of threw me off because it just felt really out of place in general with the rest of the language that was being used. But as I said, I think maybe in the US it's not so bad, so just something to be aware of, I guess. I ended up giving this one 4 stars. In retrospective, I'm not super sure about this rating. For some reason, it just seems a bit high for a Rewind or Die book, because I mean, my favorite is still Cirque Berserk, and I also gave that 4 stars, but I think that is better than this one. But I also don't want to give it 3.5 because I liked it more than Curse of the Reaper, so maybe I would bump Curse of the Reaper down to 3 and put this one at 3.5. That seems fair to me. But it was definitely a very fun reading week. And then to change the tone a little bit, yesterday I started reading Exquisite Corpse by Poppy C. Brite, which is of course a much more serious book. I tried vlogging that, but I was super tired, so I really didn't like how those clips came out, but I'll try to add a little bit of my first impressions. For now, I'll just keep on reading and I'll talk to you later. Bye! I have actually finished 2 books, one audiobook and one ebook, but I'm going to be talking about those later because right now I want to vlog the new book that I started because I'm very excited about it, and that is Exquisite Corpse by Poppy C. Brite. And this one I'm a little bit nervous about, just because I think for what I've been reading recently, it's much more on the disturbing side. And I feel like right now at this point in my life, I'm not too sure how much disturbingness I can actually handle. So this will be a good experiment for me to know how much horrible stuff I can read. But in general, I'm also excited about it because I've heard that it is amazingly well written, and that always excites me, to be honest. So let me tell you that I'm on page 3, and actually on page 1 I had to bring out the pencil because the writing is very compelling from the beginning. The opening paragraph was amazing. Actually, I'll read it to you. Sometimes a man grows tired of carrying everything the world heaps upon his head. The shoulders sag, the spine bows cruelly. The muscles tremble with weariness. Hope of relief begins to die, and the man must decide whether to cast off his load or endure it until his neck snaps like a brittle twig in autumn. So yeah, I know it's still early, but I think I really know when I like something. I have accurately predicted 5-star reads at around 3%. So I'm going to read a little bit more and then I'll check back in. I have another little update. Yesterday I read Halloweenland by Kevin J. Kennedy, and this is a short novella about a teenage boy and a teenage girl who are horror fans, and one day a carnival comes to town and it is Halloween themed. It is called Halloweenland, of course. So they attend the carnival, but when they are there they discover that the carnival holds a secret. And although they are able to escape, a few years later the carnival comes back to town, so they are forced to confront what happened the first time the carnival came around. So the idea for these was very cute, and it had some really funny, zany scenes in the carnival. At some points it read a bit like a Goosebumps book. It definitely got a little bit ridiculous. There were a lot of clowns, and it was clowns with pumpkin heads, and then the clowns were juggling fire pumpkins and throwing fire pumpkins at them. And yeah, it was all definitely a bit silly, and that's okay. As I said, I thought it was pretty cute, but unfortunately the writing style didn't really do it for me. I just felt that there was a lot of telling instead of showing, and I think that's my main pet peeve in writing, or the main thing that puts me off. There were a lot of passages where basically the whole story was just this happened and then this happened and then this happened, and it felt like I was just reading a summary that someone else had told me instead of reading the book. I don't know, it did have some fun parts, as I said, but I guess it just wasn't for me. The other thing that I've been doing that's been slasher themed and has been so much fun is watching Scream Queens. This is a TV show that came out in 2015, and back then I still lived in Mexico and there was no way to watch it from Mexico back then. So I was just always really curious about watching it, especially because at that time Emma Roberts was huge in like the horror scene with American Horror Story and all those things. So I'm living my dream of finally watching Scream Queens. So the pilot was amazing. And then, I'm not gonna lie, I struggled a little bit to get the sense of humor. It's definitely kind of daring, like not politically correct, but I think it comes across as sufficiently self-aware. So once I got the hang of it, I'm finding it really enjoyable. I've only watched 4 episodes so far, but yeah, it's been so much fun. Definitely some really gruesome kills. I appreciate the creativity. So as far as slashers go, this has been perfect for the theme that we have going on this week. And sometimes you're just in the mood for a TV show rather than a movie. I really wanted something that I could watch for the whole week, and it was all one story. So yeah, I'm very happy with that. I also started One Hell of a Night by Stephanie Sparks. So that just leaves me 2 books to finish, and I will complete my cute little witchy slashercorn. So I'll check back in when I finish either of the books I'm currently reading. Bye! I have a lot of updates because it's been ages since I filmed my last update. I just feel like since May was so hectic for me, I'm taking this month really slow. So basically I've only read this much of Exquisite Corpse, and it's definitely not because I'm not liking it, quite the opposite. I'm enjoying it so much that I do that thing where I read only a couple of chapters every day and then just let it marinate in my brain, you know? The flavors need some time to come out. Which, now that I said that out loud, it sounds weird, especially considering what the book is about. I guess the first thing to say is that I was really worried that this would be too disturbing, but it's actually not disturbing at all. Like, don't get me wrong, obviously the content is very disturbing. There are some specific acts of a sexual nature and a violent nature that are inarguably horrible. But for some reason, the way it is written does not make them as disturbing as they could be. It kind of just puts the idea of what's happening in your mind. Although I don't know if that's accurate, because it is very explicit what's happening. It's not hinting at all. It tells you what's happening, but it doesn't dwell on it too much. I think another big factor is that the descriptions are very factual, almost medical, in that the anatomy, both like different body parts and the description of things like skin and muscle and tissue, it reads almost medical. So at least for me, it was quite easy to detach my emotions from what was happening just because of the way it was described. If any of you have read this book and you also didn't find it as disturbing, regardless of the fact that the plot is actually horrific, I would love it if you told me why you felt that way. I just want to discuss these, but whenever I try telling my friends what's going on in the book, they are like, why are you telling me this? I don't need to know about your weird book. So yeah, the other thing that really surprised me in a good way is that I knew that this was about two killers that meet each other, but I thought it was going to be mostly about one of them or following that one's perspective. But we actually have so many points of view. There is the main killer, then there's the other killer, and then there are other two characters. And honestly, all of the points of view are super interesting, and I think are adding a lot to this story. The one thing that I noticed that was kind of strange, and I'm not sure yet why this decision was made, is that for the main killer, the book is written in the first person, and for all the other characters, it's the third person. So I think we are meant to follow that one a bit more. And finally, the last thing I wanted to say, it also relates to the characters, but also other themes that are talked about in the story that don't directly relate to the murder plot. So basically, all the characters we follow are gay men. And this happens, I think, in the early 90s. And a big part of the story is how back then there was the beginning of the AIDS epidemic and the horrible reaction the government and the media and everyone had in response to this. So these people, even though they were facing huge health challenges, they were not helped, but the opposite. They were demonized and isolated, and it is really heartbreaking to read about. So even though these characters are obviously not good people, I couldn't help but deeply sympathize with their circumstances. Which of course does not mean I'm condoning what they do. But yeah, that's why there's so much to think about after only a couple of chapters, and I'm really enjoying it, so I prefer to take my time with it. But whenever I wanted to read something a little bit more lighthearted, I've been reading One Helluva Night by Stephanie Sparks, and this has been great fun. I already finished it, so let me tell you what I thought. By the way, this was for a book club hosted by Kelly from Kelly Hooked on Books. And the name of this book club is Eerie Indies. So, as you may guess, this is about reading indie horror. This one was such an interesting pick. Kelly really loved Stephanie Sparks' previous books, which, from what she's told me, they are more straightforward horror. I will get into the details of this one, but it wasn't super horror-y. There was a lot of action adventure kind of stuff, which honestly I wouldn't think that that was my kind of book. So as always, I'm glad I just started reading with no idea of what the book was about. So it definitely caught me off guard, but I just had so much fun. This is about a man. He's a special agent for the government and he is not great at his job. He's always had problems with authority and just following rules and all of that. So he's not the best special agent in the squad, let's say. But anyways, he gets assigned this special mission. So he's put in a trailer at the edge of a small town. And his job is to provide security to two scientists who are going to be working on site. And all he knows is that they are going to be doing some tests on the soil. And then one night he is feeling kind of horny. So he goes on like an app and matches with a woman. And they decide to meet at the diner in that town. But their meetup does not go as planned. And they end up going on an adventure for that whole night. There are definitely some horror elements more towards the end of the book, but it is all very lighthearted, even though the stakes are high. So at least I was quite invested in the characters. But it all just has this very lighthearted feel. It's kind of zany, a little bit whimsical. There are a bunch of little details that are not essential to the story, but just make it a little bit funny. And it's also a bit of a love story. And you know that I'm very particular with romantic subplots in my horror and in books in general. But I really liked these two together. I was rooting for them. I think they complemented each other very well. And I don't know, I was very surprised because it doesn't seem at all like the type of book I would enjoy. But I thought it was funny, I thought it was sweet, it was entertaining. And I'd be very interested in reading Stephanie Sparks' other books because I really got on with her writing style. So I'm sure her more horror books will work really well with my taste as well. So I'm actually gonna try to read these a little bit faster because it's already quite late in June and I was hoping to dedicate the last 2 weeks to June on the Range, which is a booktube event about reading westerns. But now there's only gonna be like 1 week left, so maybe I will have to trim down my TBR. But that's a matter for another video. So I'm just gonna focus on trying to finish this and let you know my final thoughts. Bye! Now finished Exquisite Corpse and also the whole readathon, I guess. So I just wanted to give my final thoughts on this last book and everything I read, basically. I think I forgot to mention this, but Kelsey actually extended the readathon for the whole month. That's why I ended up extending it so much. But it was actually a super good thing because I was able to take my time, especially with Exquisite Corpse, which I think really needed that extra time of savoring. I'm not sure what I was expecting from this book, but I was pleasantly surprised in many ways. I think especially by the fact that it was so character driven. You know, I really enjoy following different characters' inner lives, their thought processes, how they respond to different situations, and I think that's definitely the case in this book, and I think that's also part of the reason why it's not so disturbing. The book is concerned less about the horrible acts themselves and more about why the characters are doing what they're doing and their emotional and psychological reaction to what's happening. And to be completely honest, I even felt like the serial killer plot or storyline was really there to frame and give support to a bigger theme, which was actually the struggles that gay men went through at the beginning of the AIDS epidemic. I think that eventually I will forget the details of what happens in the serial killing storyline, also maybe because my brain will block them a little bit, but the heartbreak of the environment in which these men were, I think that's what's going to stick with me when I think back to this book. Especially I think when viewed through the eyes of secondary characters. There was in specific one character that I'm thinking about. This is not a spoiler. For the people who have read the book, it's one of the men that works in the radio station. He plays a super small part in the story, but it had a huge impact on me. So yeah, I ended up giving it 4.5 stars. For me, it didn't quite hit the 5-star mark, and I think this is just on a personal level. I tend to rate 5 stars books that I can actually relate to, and obviously this is so far removed from my personal experience. But I guess if I was trying to objectively rate this book, writing-wise and commentary-wise, it would be a 5-star. I definitely think this was my favorite of the whole readathon. I think in second place I would put One Hell of a Night, which really was the dark horse in this TBR. I would say after that, Dead Eyes, then Curse of the Reaper, and then Halloweenland. But all in all, I've had such a fun month. I really enjoyed all of these books, and obviously I want to thank Kelsey for putting it all together. And now, the moment we've all been waiting for. Look at my beautiful, silly summer witch slashercorn. She's so cute, and I'm super pleased with the final result. As always, if you've read any of these books, I would love to know what you thought about them, or maybe if I piqued your interest in any of these books, let me know that as well. And if you don't have anything to say but you still want to say hi, maybe leave me a knife emoji. I guess I have nothing else to say for now, so I'll see you in my next video. Bye!